And thank you very much for joining us here on PM Express. And as you know, we are less than 6 months away to the December 7 elections. And we've been focusing quite a bit on the NDC and the MPP. Tonight, I want to pause for a second and focus on the potential third force. So we have many third force contenders, but there's a question that we've asked over the years, since 1992, when we've had other political parties other than the MPP and the NDC attempting to break their front. Is it really a monumental waste of time, or is it not? This year, many say the environment is quite different and that it is ripe for a third force to step in and cause a significant damage to the fortunes of both the MPP or the NDC in this particular race. Is it really the case? We'll attempt to answer that question scientifically tonight on the touch screen behind me. But which political parties, movements, independent candidates are making waves when it comes to the potential third force? A few of them. We know one is the Yellow Ghana, and they received their temporal license from the Electoral Commission just a few days back, and they're already making waves. The thing that strikes me when I look at them is obviously the color that they've chosen, which is yellow. And as you know by now, yellow is a color that is setting Alan Chamanting also uses in his own campaign and his own political party, the butterfly movement, as you know by now. And so many are raising a few more questions about that. Well, we'll try and clarify all that for you. But then there's also the New Vision movement. A man I've spoken to on Ghana Connect a few times, and indeed, there was a time when he was very, very famous because he stood up and challenged a minister of state when he made comments about the diaspora that he really objected to. And he attempted the last time to run. He didn't quite succeed in doing so because of the questions that were raised about his own ability to mobilize and to sign signatures, etc., that the Electoral Commission raised. So we'll ask him about that as he attempts once more to come back, this time hoping that he'll be cleared by the Electoral Commission to run in this year's elections. We also have seen the new force, as you know, Cheddar, Freedom Jacob Caesar, or the Kwame Bediako, who has many names. And he came first with the man in the mask. Now he's unveiled that, and he is in the reckoning very strongly. He's spending a lot of money touring the country. Very visible when you drive across the length and breadth of this country. His billboards are everywhere. And we'll talk about what the polls say. The polls say he's doing very, very well together with Alan Chamanting, and who, as you know, has come in with the movement for change. And that, again, is one of the key players this year that many say may cause an upset or can actually become the kingmaker. But will all of them together cause a significant upset? Or will one emerge as a potential proper third force? We've been craving this third force concept for a long time, for decades. Nobody has come close to delivering that punch that would make a significant dent in the fortunes of both the MPP and the NDC. So really, what does the evidence tell us? The evidence tells us that if you look at the elections since 1996 to date, put all the votes of the minority political parties together, the votes of all parties, independent candidates, call them what you may, who are not the NDC or the MP, if you put all the votes together, they only come down to 1.72 million votes. That is a tiny drop in the mighty ocean of all the votes that are available to campaign for and to get an election. All the elections, 1996 to 2020. So that immediately tells you they are up against it in attempting to do something different this year. Now, let's put this in context. In the 2020 elections, the NDC and the MPP were all in the region of 6 million votes thereabout. So the votes for just one election cycle for the party that lost the elections, I'm talking about the NDC, this 1.72 million votes that you see is a quarter of what the NDC managed to get in just one election. Right? And you're talking about all the elections combined together. And I'm just putting out the facts so we can put this in context. And they must do something really different. Has the environment really changed to warrant a third force this year, or to create the foundations and the fertile ground for a third force to emerge that will then unseat knock the NDC or the MPP off their perch. This evidence says they are really up against it. That's not all. If you break this down in the trends behind, we'll look at the trend line and what it's showing. But if you break it down into this 1.72 million votes, if you break this down into actual votes over the elections that I've specifically talked about, the only time that they managed anything, all the parties together, all the minority political parties together, including the independent candidates and the movements, call them what you may, the only time they really managed anything significant was very close to just 500,000 votes. And that was in 2008. And you see that there in 2000, that's the year that they forced the election for the very first time in electoral history to a runoff, in 2000. And that specifically was 473,000 votes. The next time they did that, again, in terms of the number of votes that they get, that managed again to push this into a runoff, was in 2008. Now, if you look at that, that's the third highest number of votes that all the minority political parties have gathered together, have managed to make together in an election. The first is in 2000, there was a runoff. The third highest votes is in 2008, 248,000 votes. Again, there was a runoff. So the argument goes that the best they can hope for is to become a kingmaker. In other words, they can cause this year's elections to go into runoff. And many will look at the history to say, again, this year we are primed possibly for a runoff. And the parties other than the NDC and MPP can cause this to happen. As the evidence shows there, if we take away 2004 from this equation, in the 2 years that they have the most votes, all the parties together, they push into runoff. But I keep emphasizing all together. Not a single one of them have managed to, by themselves, cause a dent or cause a significant ripple in the fortunes of the two main political parties. And that's what you see there. The NDC, the MPP, they are dominant indeed. If you look at the last year's elections, all the other parties together just 1.32%. So again, we're just looking at the facts, and I'm pretty sure some of them have looked at the facts. You need to look at this first and then decide what strategy are you going to adopt and how do you change this narrative. You go to the runoff elections. These are the runoff elections, and this is the first one we looked at, right? In 2000, 2008, which is what I was talking about. These are the hard numbers. MPP in 2000 had 48, NDC had 44. But if you look at all the parties together, that is 6.7%. That's the most they've managed to get, right? And so they pushed it. The third highest is when you look at the 2000 elections, which is what I mentioned earlier. But this, for me, is a trend line. And I want to show you that line if you may not notice. And this is a line I'm talking about here. This red line here is a trend line we drew. And that trend line tells us a story. That whereas the NDC and the MPP are growing in strength to strength, the minority political parties, other than the NDC and MPP themselves, independent candidates, throw them in there, they are weakening in strength. In terms of, if you measure that by votes, they are weakening in strength over the years. This pure facts. And the numbers there tell us its own story. So the NDC and MPP, they are growing in strength. They're getting more numbers. But if you are a minority political party, if you're an independent candidate, these are your fortunes, as this trend tells us. And this trend is downward. And so the projection is that you expect this to dip even further in the 2024 elections. But trends are only meant to be defied, right? If the circumstances are right, something might change this year that may cause this to start climbing back up. But how significantly can they climb from where they are now to becoming the dominant in our electoral political affairs? So that, for me, this graph here tells a very important story for the minority political parties. And just note what is happening. NDCs, MPP, they are growing. The smaller political parties, they are in decline, as that graph tells you. And then you focus on the runoff also. The runoff tells you, just focus on this and focus on that for a second. What you see happen here is the last time they really did anything significant was in 2000, as I've said already. And you look at the other time they did anything significant in 2008, but in 2004 was also quite significant. Nothing happened because it was in the middle of John Kufuor's term, right? These are all pure numbers that the parties are looking at. But I like this particular graph because that tells you the story per party. The third force, as we've seen over the period, the best third force we've had is actually the PNC's candidate in Edward Mahama. And when I saw that, I was curious. I'm like, I thought it was Papa Kwesi Indum, but the facts are the facts. If you look at that, he got 3%. Nobody else has managed anything close. Nobody else. And that is interesting indeed. And he was on the strength of a party that is very established in our political affairs. That party has dwindled by its own fortunes over time, and that was 1996, 3%. Since then, which is why the graph has been trending downwards, nobody has come close. Even Papa Kwesi Indum, that many people thought was strong, only had the showing in 2008 of 1.32%. So anybody's going to be hoping to do more than 3%. One third force. Can they be in that position? And let's put this in context. Alan Kyerematen is a force to be reckoned with. He's broke away from the party. But we had breakaways before. And when they break away and form their parties, the evidence show they don't do as well. I'll come to that. And this, for me, is a thing. There's a breakaway story, right? So many say, oh, Alan Kyerematen is the one who can cause... The history doesn't tell us that. In politics, you look to history. J.A. Kufuor, John Mills. In that year, Gusitano broke away from the NDC and only had 1.2%. Charles Nkubobwe broke away from the MPP, only had 0.3%. So again, that tells you, the fact that you break away doesn't necessarily mean, no matter how popular you are, and Nkubobwe with them was very popular. Guzi was very, very popular indeed. It doesn't mean that you can take away from the two main parties. They are so dominant, and as the evidence shows, they've only grown bigger, larger, more influential, getting more votes, while the other parties and independent candidates have been dwindling. That's the evidence. And then you look at Emmanuel Ansah entry, DFP. The DFP story is quite fascinating into the 2008 elections. Why? Because you had Obed Asama, who was a national chairman of the NDC, breakaway. We have Bid Zedin, who was the acting general secretary, the deputy general secretary, breakaway. Francis Essien broke away. They formed this party. And you thought, goodness me, the NDC is finished. In fact, also Obed Asama, who actually once predicted the demise of the NDC. As it turned out in that elections in 2008, what happened? They won the elections in the second round, in spite of that breakaway that many people thought was going to tear the NDC to shreds, right? So that's another one. And then you look at another election in 2016, again, we had Nanakunele Juma Rawlings breaking away. So don't necessarily hype and exaggerate the potential impact of Alan Kyerematen just yet, because the evidence shows that when you break away, it's not necessarily the case that you can show and you can punch above your weight. And then this, by the way, is what the polls are telling us, that in this year's election, and this, by the way, is according to Global Info Analytics, in this year's election, this is what they hope to make altogether, 11.60%. If that is the case, that will be the highest they've managed to put together if you put their strengths all in one, right? But I said, if this is what is going to happen, then there's possibly something happening this year. In our body politic, in people's disillusionment with the established forces, the two main parties, that may potentially hand one of them an advantage against the NDC or the MPP. And I want to really ask them when we sit down if they've appreciated this and what is it that will play to their strength this year, considering that they're coming up against history in this year's elections. And just look at what the polls say. The polls actually tell us, according to Global Info Analytics, that it is Alan who may manage only some 7.40%, and then close to him will be Nana Bediako Sheda with 2.3%, thereabout, right? So that gap here is significant, right? But this man, who just got into the race and threw in a lot of resources at it, seems to be doing quite well. And then you have the rest who are in there. You have Samuel Dankwa, and then you have Sam Ankra, who Global Info Analytics says is just managing just 0%. Thankfully, he's here. And polls are polls. Even in the US, polls got it horribly wrong when he said that Donald Trump was going to lose. And so it is what it is. You take it as you find it. We'll see what his own polls are telling him. Because if you are in a race, you must be doing your own polling. You must be researching. So you must know what is it that the ground is telling you there. So let's have the conversation. That is the evidence. I'll put that evidence to them. And let's hear what their answers are. I'm pretty sure if they're hearing me for the first time, they may have already done analysis. I'm not sure that they're seeing this for the first time. The team will be poring over this data. Now elections is all about data, all about data. You don't just go in blind. You have to guide what you're doing with data. They've seen this before. I'm pretty sure if they haven't, I'll be very surprised. But when I sit down, I'll put it to them and hear the answers. Please stay with me after this. And thank you for staying with us. My guest in the studio with me tonight for a conversation. I'll introduce them pretty shortly. You want to stay for that because a lot of them are vying to cause an upset this year. Will it happen? Based on the evidence that I just showed you. But PMS is always brought to you by Syntex tanks. You're strong, you're tough. No matter your water needs, they have the tank just for you. They come in bespoke form. You can get any size, any color of preference that you require, and they'll provide. They have 7 years warranty, and they're across the country. Why don't you pick your phone and call them on 0244 335 168 or shop online at syntexgh.com. Syntex tanks are strong and you're tough. My guest in the studio with me, Dr. Amu Dako, is actually joining us via Zoom. He's an aspiring independent candidate. Samuel Apia Dankwa is the leader of the Yellow Ghana. They recently got their provisional license from the Electoral Commission. Kofi Kranting is a 2024 presidential hopeful. In fact, he is actually a man who was there before in 2020 and didn't quite make it through. I want to ask him about that and what he's hoping to change this year for the New Vision movement. He had a press conference over the weekend, and you're hoping to do something this year. Dr. Samankra, you know him. He's been on the show before. He's also an independent candidate and looking forward to the December 7 elections as well. Dr. Ankra, you this year were the first to, dip your toes in the water to say, I really want to take on these two behemoths, these NDC and MPP. I first want to get your reaction to the data that I presented there. As you listened to that and you watched that, what was it that your reaction said when you saw how you were up against the data, the history, and everything else says you really are in this and it's not going to go anywhere?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show this evening. And as you rightly said, I saw the data that was shown. And it's amazing that it's looking this way because we also do our polling. And for us to be able to do what we're doing now, we need to first of all understand what the market says or what the electorates are saying. And I'm sure if you conduct a polling here right now, you get a different opinion as to what was shown. 9 out of 10 Ghanaians that I speak to would not vote if they don't see credible candidates on the on the ballot box this time. People are sick and tired of the status quo. It's a new era. It's a new time. And all these things call for new movements like these. So to continue having the same sort of polling, even though what the ground says is different, it's quite amazing to me. But anyway, we'll first of all have to understand what is the, what you call it, scientific data behind what they did. But I can tell you strongly that this is not what is happening on the ground. The ground is showing something else totally different. People aren't looking at NDC or MPP. They are looking at a very good alternative to take the country forward. They're sick and tired of the status quo. They're sick and tired of the way we do our politics, where certain cabal gets into governance. It's as if a war has been won. They share the spoils among themselves and then basically move on. At the end of the day, 4 years come and no other Ghanaian has benefited apart from a little clique. And this is a status quo that we are looking to change. So I suppose the situation on the ground is totally different from what I'm seeing with these polling. But we'll get to it when we go along.
Yeah, I mean, and Kofi, I'll bring you in. There's a poll that, of course, we know polls are what they are. And then there's the history and what the trend says about minority political parties, independent candidates. But what do you say to that history? What do you say to the downward trajectory, the likes of you who want to now get in the game have been on over the last few elections?
Well, good evening to you, good evening to your viewers, and good evening to Ghana. Evans, the polling tells a story. To me, it tells a story that the system we are operating with is now credible. Because you take a look at the polls, it's not reflective of what's on the ground. And you know the truth. If I were to go into your studio right now and ask the people, cameraman in your studio, we'll get it's going to be a totally different backdrop to what's on the poll. If we went on the street now, right now, maybe close to 10 o'clock, go down circle, take a sample all over Ghana, it's going to be totally in a contrast to what you see.
So that's the polling, but what about the history? What about the dwindling fortunes of minority political parties, independent candidates?
Well, because, first of all, you need to ask yourself this question.
Well, that's not polling. That's based on elections.
Well, but this is the point. The point is, Evans, the facts are, and I'm glad you said polling, science-based, okay? So data does matter. But ask yourself this. In the last election, there were close to 5 million people who registered to vote but did not vote. That would have cost this polling to have a totally different outcome. Now,
when you say polling, you mean the elections?
I mean, of course, the elections. So, but what I'm saying is the apathy out there is not even allowing people to even poll. So if you don't get people giggle, garbage in, garbage out, if you're not getting the right people who are being sampled to come out with exactly how they feel about what's going on, then obviously the polling is going to be skewed. What I'm saying is
yeah, I mean, you keep using the word poll. I'm actually pointing you to the electoral history since 1996. And we've tracked to see how minority political parties and independent candidates have been performing over the years. And you saw the trend downwards.
Yeah, because
that you can contest is elections.
That's correct.
Ghanaians are actually telling you about the period that they are losing faith in minority political parties and independent candidates. The NDC and NPP keep growing.
Well, they're not growing. Well, you see, and this is another thing, and this is the misconception. Evans, the parties are not growing. What it is people are hemorrhaging from the system. So if you are left with a bulk, it gives the impression that you are growing, but it's because everybody else is leaving the arena because they don't believe in what's going on. So, and the reverse, when the reverse happens, this is what's going to happen. What's going to happen is now in 2024, you're going to have a lot of people coming to the arena, and it's going to change the dynamic of the 50+1. I bet you it's going to happen because I'm sure all of us we are talking and we are campaigning, and the people that we are pitching to are people who are disgruntled, who don't want to know about the system anymore because they don't believe in the system. And you know as much as I do that, hey, this system that we're working with is not totally democratic. That it's littered with problems. So we first of all, we don't have a functional system that we could point to say this system is credible. The system is not credible. It's the same system that got me disqualified when I hadn't done anything. It pushed me to the bottom and said, hey, listen, you forged signatures. I didn't forge any signatures. You were a criminal, yet they gave me back my 100,000 cedis. If I'm a criminal, why give me back my money? If I'm a criminal, why don't you file a claim at the CID that Kofi Kranting is a criminal for forging documents? You go to CID and they laugh at you and say, hey, listen.
Were you invited to the CID, though? Because
No.
the EC then told that they're going to report you to the CID.
I'm glad you remember. So I went to CID. I didn't wait for them to call me. I went there, and they laughed at me and said, hey, this is the game they play. Come on. So just to validate that, I did a criminal clearance report that didn't have anything on it. They hadn't even heard of the EC about my case. So this is the kind of gimmicks with our whole system that we need to correct. And for us to even begin to talk about the polling and the numbers and the election results, the system it's not credible.
Yeah, but that is, and Mr. Damka, I'll come to you on that. That is all you have now to work with. I mean, there's the polling which you talked about, but the election results are the election results.
That is correct.
And I keep making the point as the data showed. Whereas the NDC and the NPP keep getting more votes year on year, election to from one election to the next, the minority political parties are getting less and less votes from one election to the next. Something is happening that shows that the people simply do not trust that you guys can make the difference going forward.
Yeah, good evening to you, good evening to Ghana.
But have you thought about this, though?
I have.
Have you analyzed it the way we showed it?
You know, before we got into this, and you would realize that, I'm sure, I don't know if you had heard about us maybe a week ago.
Yeah, like I just saw you pop up a week ago.
Exactly.
The yellow Ghana.
Yes. So in 2020, I contested for the position of MP in Ablekuma Central. So
on the ticket of?
As an independent candidate.
Okay.
And I learned very fast, and I realized that you need to understand the system in order to be able to. And you notice that even though you've not seen much of us, we featured in the poll.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are not using the poll at all. And I can guarantee you that in about 2 months from today, you see us either third or fourth. You know, we understand what works in Ghana. And before we had our provisional certificate, we were all over the country working with people on the ground in every single region in Ghana. And before we came up with our manifesto, for example, we spoke to everybody in our executive body, you know, representing all regions, because that's the reason. That's why the EC would give you the provisional certificate, because they realize that you have that kind of reach, you have that grassroots, appeal, and you have people on the ground. You know, that's how they ascertain that you indeed have that kind of reach. And we are seeing that the reality is that the NDC and the MPP are entrenched in our body politic. And once you realize that, you need to have a strategy to meet that.
So what's your strategy?
Our strategy is simple. It's just what, you know, the NDC and MPP achieved this over 30 years. You know, from 92, they have been in families. If you go, you may go to a family today, someone is MPP, someone is NDC. They talk NDC, MPP throughout the year. And then when it comes to elections, they have to decide between MPP and NDC. It's always been the case. So what we are doing, and I can disclose some and, you know, hide some a bit, but what we are doing is reaching people at the grassroots, creating our presence at the grassroots. And that's how we're working. And that's why you're seeing that we are even showing something, even though in the media at the moment, we don't seem to have any advertisements or any form of media presence. You realize that the polls are acknowledging that there is, you know, a contender called Samuel Appiah Danquah, and there's Yellow Ghana as well.
Yeah, Sam, I see you want to have something.
Well, I mean, first of all, this is where all the skewing towards this election starts. For anybody to bring this kind of polling here, and again, I'm taking them on.
That's a global info analytics.
Absolutely.
You haven't seen it before today?
Well, I haven't seen it. I've seen some sort of polling going around the system, but then again, like I said earlier, these are not stuff we believe in. We've done proper scientific polling.
Which says what?
Which says 9 out of 10 Ghanaians now, starting from your room here, when you speak to, either would not vote at all or until they see a credible person on the ballot paper.
9 out of 10.
9 out of 10.
But that sounds
90%.
Unbelievable, and possibly, if it's too good to be true, is actually not true.
Like I said,
that 9 out of 10 people will not be voting this year.
No, not voting. I mean, I said
unless they have a credible person.
No, because the people.
And asking that these 9 out of 10 people don't find the NDC and MPP credible.
No, they don't find them attractive anymore.
But they're interesting. That means that in the 9 out of 10, they will not be only one will be voting for the NDC and MPP.
Well, absolutely. So if polling,
but that can't be the case.
Exactly. So when you see pollings like that showing clear distinction that they've won already, it's worrying, because like Kofi said earlier, just get out of this office and go on the street and just do rough sampling.
Yeah, Ghanaians in every election will complain about the NDC and MPP, but they also vote for them. That's the evidence shows.
Yeah, you see, but the point is, if you're seeing such polling, obviously what you are psyching the people is, these guys, the vote to them means nothing because already they've won. So don't get them, don't mind them, don't look at them. Just look at us, because at the end of the day, before even we move, this is number one, this is number two. That is what the status quo we are trying to change here, because we need to have a true reflection of our politics on what goes on the ground. Our people are suffering. Our people have realized they are out of governance. It's just a few cabals that take over our country, do whatever they want with it, and leave everybody in the worst state.
But Ghanaians know that, and they
yes,
still vote for the
that's what I'm saying. So if
and you should see the history.
So what I'm saying, look,
from 1996 with Edward Mahama,
yes,
who had 3%. You've had the likes of Dr.
Gustavo
Pakwisi Indum, right?
I've seen all of them.
Powerful independent folks who went in from their own political party.
Evans.
They all came telling us what you're saying.
Evans,
and
no.
yet they managed since 1996, they managed only 1.72 million votes.
Evans, no. There's always time for everything. When people get fed up and they get to the point that they are now, the status quo is no more an option. I am talking about an incident that happened in Senegal. I'm talking about how Macron became president. I'm talking about incidents that happen around the world. We are going through the same sort of situation right now in our country. So let's not just try and bring history and things that had happened before and try to bring into what is happening in our country now. We want to see reality. We want to see what exactly is going through the thinking of the Ghanaian electorate as we speak today. And it's not what the polling is telling us.
Okay, stay with me. I want to bring one of your other colleagues, Dr. Nia Mudako, who joins us on Zoom right now. And Doc, what is it about the 2024 elections that convinces you that you can change that narrative that I showed since 1996, that if you put all the elections together, independent candidates, minority political parties have only managed 1.72 million votes? Is there anything happening this year that you think will change that story?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It means, right? What they show may be suggestive and what they conceal may be vital. You put us on figures. Unfortunately, I couldn't hear you for the first 15 minutes. So I saw only the last graph. Let me tell you this. In 1992, okay, if you show 1992, MPP and Dubois got only 30.3%. They got only 30.3%, Dubois and MPP. By 2000, within 8 years, Kufuor has almost doubled it to 57 in the second round of vote. And the 58.4 of J.J. Rawlings in 1982 has dwindled to 43.1. So things change. That is one. Now, for me, where I'm coming from is the public sentiment. I just left Ghana probably 10 days ago. The sentiment on the ground is very different from what the polls are showing. And I will take you back to 2020. In 2020, the University of Ghana Political Science Department, they did their own survey and polling, and they said that of the electorate, only 56% were strongly aligned to NDC or MPP, and 10%, 50-50, and 34% not aligned at all. Somehow, when they go to vote, this 34 and this 10 will decide to vote one way or the other. And that's the problem. The problem is that at that point, or those points in time, they could not find any credible person. So now when you're talking about data, the University of Political Science Department, they did this survey, 34% are not aligned at all with the political tradition in Ghana. 10%, 50-50. So what you're talking about here is that you have 44% there that with solid message and proper organization can be tapped into. That is even if MPP hasn't lost much of his votes. We have to understand that in 1992, when everybody seemed to be off work, people got the impression that we were tired of Rawlings. Everyone was very popular. He ended up with 30.3%. So from me...
But how does that help you? How does that help you in 2024?
But you were caught in 1996, so why not 1992?
Yeah, no problem. I hear your 1992 quote, but how does that help you in 2024?
It helps because it tells you the core basis or the core solid foundation of MPP, for instance. It tells you that it's 30.3. That is united MPP. There is no Alan, there is no nothing, everything all over the place. Very energetic. Very energetic, more popular than Bawumia today. He hasn't lied to Ghanaians before. He hasn't done anything like that before. He brought this culture of silence. So it was very popular. Yet he got 30.3. Now, with MPP there now, Alan is going to take like a 7% or whatever. He's going to take part from MPP. And Bawumia is the most unpopular vice president in the history of Ghana.
And that's based on what exactly? That pronouncement is just made. It's based on what?
That's based on public sentiment. Public sentiment.
Yeah, and have you measured this public sentiment scientifically?
Well, that's what I'm telling you, that even as far back as 2020, 34% were not aligned at all. Okay? That's on investment of Ghana Political Science Department. And 10% were 50-50. Only 6% were something aligned to NDC or MPP. Now, when we say, have I measured it scientifically, what exactly do you mean? Polls are always biased.
No, I mean, there's a polls. I mean, even the polls is not something that I put to mind. I made the point that polls are what they are. I mean, they either come to pass or they not. But as for the history, but as for the political history and what the elections outcome tell us, you cannot dispute that.
No, I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is that elections are held at a particular point in time.
Yes, and that's why I asked the question.
And that's why.
And ask the question. So what is it about? Yeah, that's what I said. What is it about this year? That's what I'll ask you. What's it about this year, 2024, that will change what I've just shown, that history, that electoral history, so dramatically to favor you?
Because NPP and NDC have been given enough time to prove their worth.
Okay.
NDC and NPP have been given enough time, and Ghanaians are tired.
Okay. I mean, Kofi, and stay with me. I want to bring Kofi into that question.
Yeah.
So he says that. I think you also repeated that at the beginning, that you believe that the narrative is different on the streets, right? But go back to 2016, when we have this historic defeat. I mean, in the electoral history, nobody has suffered that defeat with that margin. People say the same thing, that people were tired. And they voted so massively for the MPP.
That's correct, Evans. A couple.
So what's different what's different this year?
What's different? What's different? Hey, Ni, be quiet.
Let me hear Kofi.
So a couple of things, two major things. People don't change when they see the light. They saw the light 2016. It didn't change them. People change when they feel the heat. The heat is on, 2024. So that's point number one. Number two, like Nee said, and I know Sam always talks about it, the dynamics, the fodder we have for 2024 is a totally different breed. It's never been like this. Never. The Ghanaians have never seen this breed of professionals, competent professionals, running for president ever before.
Well, I challenge that. You have...
Who?
Dr. Pakwesi Yindum.
No. Okay, so a couple of things. When Pakwesi Yindum came, you got to understand, you see, so a couple of things. Pakwesi Yindum came... Okay, so there are a couple of things I won't be able to say.
Well, why won't you be able to say?
But a couple of things. So listen to this. Pakwesi Yindum was not the candidate of choice by virtue of he wasn't electrifying.
Pakwesi Yindum wasn't electrifying?
No, he wasn't. He was a base candidate. So listen, Ghanaians like Flash. I'm not saying I'm Flash. I'm not, but Ghanaians like Flash. Ghanaians like Flash. And Ghanaians were not hurting. Pakwesi Yindum came off from CPP that gave everybody a red light because it was almost as if there was disloyalty all over him. Ghanaians don't like disloyalty. They don't care how much they are hurting. They won't consider anyone who's disloyal. And I think because he came off on the CPP joint, people discredited his candidature as questionable.
So you're saying that if you're not part of established parties, then people accept you more, then you can make much of a difference?
No, you can't be part of an established party and bail out of that and make an attempt to establish an independent identity. Just like what Chairman Ting is doing. That's why we know for a fact the polls are going to show, or the numbers are going to show at the time we come to elections, that people are not going to, because it's the same pool of people. You see? So, and you have to really understand the way the psyche of the Ghanaian. The only reason why the Ghanaian is going to change their pattern now is the breed is different. The people who are vying for the presidency is different. We are credible. We are competent.
Well, I mean, the history shows that there have been many very competent independent candidates.
But the timing was wrong, though. But the timing was wrong.
Many professionals have entered into that.
Timing was wrong. Timing is what makes it, Evans.
So the timing is different.
What
about the timing? I keep asking that question. Everybody keeps mentioning the timing. What is different about this timing?
People are hurting more than they've ever hurt. That's not what I am saying. It's a fact. And at the same time, the NDC and MPP are giving us a show of a lifetime of incompetence. This is, a parade of incompetence. Mahama comes up and says, I'm going to make you poultry farmers. Baumia comes and says, I'm going to build you toilets. I mean, what is this? Circus of the incompetence. This is the classic circus of the incompetence. We've never seen that. I was watching a video the other day, Baumia talking about they're going to train Kayaye to do ICT. Hey, Baumia, this guy's a master. They're going to train Kayaye, wait for the person to graduate from their homes to be Kayaye. Just wait. Once they become Kayaye, then you're going to train them to be ICT. Meanwhile, John Mahama is saying, hey, listen, we're not going to give you jobs, the Okada riders. We will wait for you to go be an Okada, license you, and then train people to know how to sit on the back of motorbikes. I was like, what? It's on my phone. I was flabbergasted when I heard it. I was like, this is a classic circus of the incompetence, and we are witnessing it. And you here telling me, oh, what is it about 2024 that's going to make it change? Ghanaians are looking at it. And another thing, Evans, the youth, they retired, they reclined into obscurity, but now they're more charged up than anything because they realize that this is their last shot. At 640 billion cedis of debt, no industry. We're popping about 315 babies every day from teenagers having these babies, no work. There are more unemployed graduates than any country in the world. Never even heard that before, unemployed, society of unemployed graduates. Heard that before? It's only, everything about Ghana, we're coming in here today, everything about Ghana.
So that's what you hope to exploit this year for your advantage.
I'm not, and that's another thing. It's not Kofi Kranting, or I believe any of my colleagues hoping to exploit that. Is us just accepting the fact that the two people who have been the mafioso cabals for the last 32 years have come to the end of their game. Okay. They know it's come to the end of the game.
Let me bring in Mr. Dankwa. The best you can hope for, realistically, is to move the elections to runoff.
That is not our strategy. Our strategy is to win.
But yeah, when I hear that anybody other than NDC and MPP say they want to win, you know that is just blowing hot air.
Allow me to explain. So you see, I know Ghanaians would normally circle back to NDC MPP, and for a good reason.
You know that. So why are you saying you want your strategy to win the election?
That's what I'm saying. Just allow me to explain. Now, Ghanaians would normally circle back to MPP and DC for a reason. While you campaign, what you realize is that people are quick to listen to you. They're quick to approve your message. But they tend to, in the few weeks to elections, they tend to ask themselves, can you win? If they don't think you can win, then the next question they ask themselves is, who can I vote for who would not allow the other candidate that I think is really poor to be the next president? That's what normally happens. So what we are offering now is a strategy that would make everyone who believes in the message we are putting out actually stay the course till election day and vote for us on that day. You know, so we've put together a lot of programs and wonderful policies that will transform the country in the shortest possible time. And for every group of, you know, people that we have basically segmented, they have something that they would be more than excited to, you know, embrace in our manifesto. And that's exactly how we intend
So
to.
you are a new political party.
Yes.
You just got your provisional license.
That's correct.
You emerged 6 months on election, and you want to win elections.
Stranger things have happened.
No,
you know?
not in politics.
You see,
not in the land of the NDC and the MPP.
No, the thing is this. You have something should already make you want to, you know, find out how we have managed to move so quickly, you know, without you taking notice.
But that's my point, right?
Yes.
I mean, and that actually is a disadvantage. I haven't noticed. Nobody has. You actually concede that nobody has. It just popped up. And yet you say you want to win elections.
You have me here. You have my party
Well,
here.
because the EC gave you a provisional license. I mean,
Yes.
they see that you're credible enough to give you a license.
And you have put out a poll that clearly shows that we are actually...
Yeah, you have
taking
zero.
them
You have 0.10%.
No, 0.10% is not zero. You understand? It's not zero. And you haven't seen us do any campaign or any rally or hold any press conferences.
But you call yourself Yellow Ghana.
Yes.
That's awfully similar to Alan Chamanting's own colors and what
Yellow
she's
Ghana
been.
since 2020. We have been Yellow Ghana since 2020. I mean, if you compare me to Alan, I'm the only one who has actually stood for national office before. You understand? He hasn't been a contestant or a candidate for, you know, either parliament or for the presidency before. And I have used the same color and the same symbol. I use the same.
You're not in this to undermine him.
I'm sorry?
You're not in this to undermine him.
No.
Because there's similarity there. Yellow to yellow.
No. There was, you know what? What people do not realize, I don't know if you've seen how the butterfly morphed. If you look at the press conference he held when he announced his campaign, it was a monarch butterfly on a blue background. And nobody's ever asked why the color keeps changing. Even his posters don't look yellow.
Okay. Let me come back to you, Dr. Samankra, as we wrap up. So you obviously believe, I'm not going to ask you, believe you're going to win elections this year, and unless a miracle happens, that is still going to happen. I mean, the reality shows what it is. The evidence I'm using is what history tells us. So what is your flagship strategy? If you don't want to disclose it, what is your flagship message that would change somebody's mind to not vote for the NDC or MPP, but vote for you? What is it? He's given us a sense of what his messaging is. Well, what's yours?
Brilliant, Evans. First of all, let me just go back to the discussions we had earlier before I give you the message. You see, when a system is flawed, it becomes very difficult to get serious players come to play and have a fair ground. When you're in an environment where you're getting polling like that,
you keep referring to the polling.
Back.
I get the polling.
And
but this is global info analytics.
Not just the polling.
It's just a tiny bit of what I presented.
Not just the polling. Then
but you're forgetting.
No.
You're forgetting the 3 decades worth of data that I showed.
I'll get back to that. Then you have prominent studios, TV stations, and radio stations like you also having NDC, MPP discussions outside everything.
But that's why you're here.
I'm coming. How many of these you do?
Oh, you've
every day,
twice.
Every morning, I wake up and I'm seeing NDC, MPP discussions going on radio station. Meanwhile, the actual fact on the ground does not reflect what you guys are presenting to us. So what I'm saying is, let's go back to the basis. Let's start portraying fairness towards our electoral, our elections. Because if we think voting for the right candidate is what is going to make this country move from this plague of issues that had engulfed us from the last 32 years on over and get into a better destination, then let's take these things serious. Because I personally think it looks like it's a rigged environment.
But the world isn't fair, especially in the world of politics. It's even less fair.
I'm coming to that.
So you must know that. It's not news to you.
I'm coming to that.
So you just have to get on with it. My question to you is, how are you getting on with a flagship message that shifts your mind from NDC MPP to yours?
I have gotten on with it. And obviously, it's very, very simple and clear. Ghanaians have seen a lot of the NDC and a lot of the MPP. Politics, as we know, is meant to change our living conditions, uplift us from where we are to a better social standard of living. Have we seen that? If we haven't seen that, then common sense tells us we can't keep taking the same direction and expecting to go to a different destination.
So what's your flagship message?
My flagship message is, if Ghanaians are looking to have a better taste of life from what they are having, if they are looking to see something different from what they are used to, then it's time for them to go to the ballot box and do something different.
But that's not a flagship message.
Hold on, I'm coming.
NDC says it will do 24 hours.
I'm coming.
That for them is their thing. MPP is talking about, last time they were here, they said their flagship is tax amnesty.
How is this affordable? We're talking about affordable Ghana, bringing a second independence.
Affordable Ghana.
Creating an affordable Ghana. That's what I'm saying. If what they are going through, it's what they want to, then they must well stay with MPP, NDC.
Okay, affordable
But if
Ghana.
they are looking to have an affordable Ghana, a Ghana where what they are earning meets their demands in life, then they should stick back and think twice.
Okay, let me ask Kofi that question because I have a minute to wrap. Kofi, what's your flagship?
Simple. We are the only candidate who's going to, number one, this is our threesome message, change the Constitution, eradicate corruption, institute a national development plan. Plain and simple.
You have a national development plan?
No, we
Changing
don't.
the Constitution, we tried it with
don't
the
have a
Constitutional Review.
We don't have, okay, see.
So both of them are new. The middle one
No,
is...
it's not. Are you kidding me? Of course it's new. Listen, nobody made an attempt to even change the Constitution. It was a review.
The Constitutional Review Committee, there was a white paper that came up that's accepted a lot of the things that said, this is how we do it.
But it wasn't done. So what good was it? Evans, we see that.
But I guess my point is that thinking about changing it is not new. Everybody says that.
No. Nobody can say that. Evans, you are part of the problem.
No, I'm not. It's a question. It's actually the fact is that
it's not,
John Mills believed this is time for us to review the Constitution.
The council to John Mills did not know what they were doing. That's why they did not get this thing passed in Parliament, because they did it the wrong way. A lot of Ghanaians don't know that. I'm telling you.
Yeah, but the fundamental principle and the concept of changing the Constitution isn't new.
So
and amending it isn't new.
Who cares if it's...
But that's my
nobody
point.
cares. So, what matters is you get it done. Nobody has gotten it done yet.
So you want to get it done.
We're going to get it done.
Remember that we're saying that we've had a lot of things before. That we've had before.
Yeah, but nobody can come out... Give me one president who's come out, or one candidate for president who's come out to say, I am going to change the Constitution. Give me one.
Well, he said it. The Alliance Group, now that they formed into a coalition, have also made the same point with Abu Sakara Foster, with NIM. NIM was here. That's their core objective.
No, okay, well, listen. Okay, well, maybe you have.
Okay, but it's fair. I mean,
Institute a national development plan,
yeah.
Eradicate corruption, and change the Constitution.
Eradicate corruption.
Absolutely.
That's utopian.
No, it's not.
You say
because you're so substandard.
Eradicate corruption. Even the United States haven't eradicated corruption.
Yeah, who is the United States?
Even Great Britain. Even the Scandinavian countries haven't eradicated corruption.
You see,
you want to eradicate corruption?
No. Evans.
It's unbelievable.
No, it's not unbelievable.
It's too good to be true.
No. You see, the consciousness should always be to zero. Now, we always know that because you're dealing in a human being environment, people are going to cut corners here and there. But when they cut corners, you cut them off. Listen, if we don't go in with a consciousness to eradicate corruption, it's going to eat us all up.
You use the word zero.
Yeah.
That's a former president once who couched the whole sexy campaign around that.
Zero tolerance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So again, it's not new.
Evans, I have
No,
something
no,
to
no. But zero tolerance
Please.
has got nothing to do with eradicating of corruption.
But zero tolerance is zero tolerance.
Oh,
It's supposed
Evans,
to deliver
come
that.
on,
let me
man.
come with this.
Yes, just a 30 seconds.
You remember when I came on your show?
Yes, please.
And you asked me, and I said I was going to cut the size of government drastically. And you said, how many ministers? And I said, 20. You laughed at my face. Have you realized now that Baumia, who is part of a 125 minister
talking about
government,
50.
is saying 50.
Yeah.
Mahama, who used over 90 ministers, is saying he's looking to use 50. And Alan also said 40. So clearly, it shows that the alternative space is providing serious policies.
The Constitution
that
actually backs you because the Constitution says have a cabinet of 19 ministers, which is you can run this country
Exactly.
with 20 minutes.
So basically, what I'm saying is the alternative space is providing some serious policies, and it's about time people like you and the electorate start paying attention.
Okay, but we must ask the question. That's how it sounds. You've made your point about your message already.
No, I haven't.
Okay, so what's your
I haven't.
message?
So the centerpiece of my manifesto, or Yellow Ghana's manifesto, is the single tax and the universal welfare system.
Okay.
So basically what we are doing is, you would realize that the, government spends a lot on social intervention programs. So what we are doing is that we are basically separating the welfare system away from government control. And then we are implementing the single tax. Basically, it's a flat tax, which takes away, you get rid of all taxes, all duties, all levies, all permits. And then we institute a flat tax of 10% on all receipts. So basically, the one who receives the money is the one who makes the payment. Yeah.
Well, listen, we'll bring them back here for a closer conversation as we proceed and progress towards elections. And Dr. Nidako, thank you very much also for joining us virtually. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Well, you have to